if you would like to do some more research, I would recommend you read some journal articles that have been published recently. Okay, so with regards to research and specifically reading journal articles, I would like for you to integrate as much literature in your research papers as possible related to your selected topic or the case studies that you're studying, to see what other researchers actually say about that company, that organization, and how they analyze the pros and cons of the challenges that these organizations face. So in this article entitled Managing Diverse Employees at Starbucks, focusing on ethics and inclusion, you can see here the authors. So these are all the authors that worked on this research for a period of 3 months to 6 months. And then obviously the research went into a review process by blind reviewers. So 2 or more peer reviewers looked at the article, they made some recommendations in terms of changes, and then eventually it was resubmitted, revised, and finally was accepted and published at the International Journal of Learning and Development. So you can see here the year of publication was 2014, the volume number is 4, and the issue number is number 3. And also you can look at pages in the journal where it appears. So it should appear starting on page 35. My recommendation is normally when you're looking at journal articles, not only you should look at the title to see whether it aligns with your research or not, but you should quickly read the abstract to see what the abstract says, what is useful for your research or not. This is obviously before you read the entire article. So the abstract is sort of like a marketing tool for the journal. So if you read 10 articles, let's say, and only 2 of them relate to your research, then read those 2 articles in their entirety. This way you don't waste your time. In the meantime, you'll learn exactly what needs to be learned or researched. So in this case, for this article, the abstract says workforce diversity is a reality of the modern times. For every organization, in managing it effectively can lead to a sustainable competitive advantage. The purpose of this paper is to analyze the management of diversity at one of the most admired companies in America and one of the best 100 companies to work for, which is Starbucks. We will discuss how managers lead diverse employees in a global environment and what makes this company so unique. Effective management of diversity is not only employing diverse employees, but learning to appreciate, respect, and respond to the needs, to the values, and to the beliefs of diverse people and provide a positive work environment for them. Therefore, we will analyze the general environment and task forces that affect the diversity, as well as the challenges faced by Starbucks managers when managing diverse employees. Furthermore, the impact of diversity in the company performance will be subject of analysis through a value-driven perspective. Finally, we will identify some of the best practices for effectively managing diversity and propose some recommendations for readers and managers of any organization. And then you see some keywords that relates to the research or the topics of this paper. So once you've read the abstract, it basically gives you an idea of what the authors did, what was the intention, and what is the conclusion. So the conclusion for this paper would be, what is the analysis in terms of the forces in the task and global environment or general environment of Starbucks or the company in the industry, in what type of challenges companies face, more specifically Starbucks, and how are they handling it. In other words, you should be able to understand why is it that this company is considered to be one of the top best 100 companies to be in America. What makes them get this recognition for themselves? So if the abstract gives you ideas about the relationship of this paper to your research, then you should read the entire article to better understand what the authors are saying and how they arrive at the conclusions that they do. So in the introduction part, you see here, let us look at one paragraph here. The introduction paragraph says that one of the greatest challenges for managers today is managing the increase of diversity in the workplace. You see, it is obviously supported by a source. So that source is from 2010, and then this citation should have a full reference at the end of the article. So if you want to see whether this is a book or a journal article, you would have to go to the reference to see that reference. Diversity is defined as dissimilarities or differences among people due to their age, gender, race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, socioeconomic background, education, experience, physical appearance, capabilities, or disabilities, and any other characteristics that are used to distinguish between people. Now, this definition is in quotation, or this statement here is a direct quotation, which means it comes from this author or these authors named Jones and George in 2014, page 135. The reason that the page number is in this citation is because it is a direct quotation. So anytime you borrow something without changing or paraphrasing it, you need to put the author's names, the year, and the page number as well. If it is an online article and it doesn't have pages, then you would put the paragraph number. That would be P-A-R-A period, and then whatever paragraph that is. And it continues to say that according to Thomson 2005, organizations who limit the kinds of people that they are willing to hire are limiting also the talent pool from joining the company. Consequently, this discrimination limits the productivity of the organization in predictions for growth and survival. Again, this final sentence in this paragraph is also supported by a reference. So in this reference here, you see it is multiple authors, and it's from 2012 in page 43. Now, this is not a quotation, so as a writer, you have the option to write the page number or not. If it is important to basically look at this concept, then it's good to have a page number in case other readers want to go to that page. However, it's a choice that you have to make. Should I include the page number or should I not? Sometimes it's better to include the page number for a very important concept. Sometimes you have the choice not to do that because you've paraphrased it. It's in your own words. However, because in this case, it claims that discrimination limits the productivity of organizations in predictions of growth in survival, it's an important concept. So we're saying that other people have supported the statement that you can go bankrupt if you limit the diversity of the employees or if you discriminate toward others in the organization. The article gives you a company overview here. So you can see in this first paragraph under the heading of overview, in this first paragraph under the company overview heading, it says Starbucks started the business 43 years ago with a single store. And then it says that the business thrived and now the company has more than 19,000 retail stores in over 60 countries and it has around 160,000 employees. Now that is obviously what was printed and published in 2014 when the article was being written or published. With 13,279 centers located in the US, Starbucks is the number one of the top 10 largest coffee chains in the world. Starbucks' mission is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, in one neighborhood at a time. In addition, the company takes a holistic approach to ethically sourcing the highest quality coffee. The second paragraph says that there's a great balance between profitability and social conscience. Starbucks is considered one of the world's most ethical companies. You see, it says that it's considered to be one of the most ethical companies. Now you have to support that statement. So you see, there's a 2013 citation. The company uses responsible purchasing practices, supports farmer loans, forest conservation programs, and has been involved in several volunteer programs to help the communities where their stores are located. Furthermore, Starbucks is striving to create a culture that both values and respects diversity and inclusion. To do so, they have integrated diversity and inclusion into the core of their leadership competencies and expect that all leaders practice behaviors that demonstrate inclusion. Again, this comes from Starbucks website or their information that they have made publicly available. Starbucks Diversity Inclusion 2014. So if you look in the references under Starbucks Diversity and Inclusion for 2014, you'll see exactly where that information comes from or the link in the reference list of this paper. In this paragraph is interesting because it says the company refers to its employees as partners. As partners because they consider them as part of the business success. In the Starbucks Business Ethics and Compliance focus, diversity is part of the second principle of the company. And it states, together we embrace diversity to create a place where each of us can be ourselves. We always treat each other with respect and dignity, and we hold each other to that standard. Again, this statement comes from Starbucks Business Ethics and Compliance 2011, page 2. Similarly, the company is building strategic relationships with organizations and institutions that reflect Starbucks diversity and inclusion values. Now, in this paragraph, it tells you that similarly, the company is building strategic relationships with organizations and institutions that reflect Starbucks diversity and inclusion values. For instance, Starbucks has relationships with Multicultural Food and Hospitality Association, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and National Council of La Raza. So the company is obviously practicing diversity and inclusion, but they also prefer that their suppliers, their vendors, their partners, all of them practice the same values. So you can continue reading. You can see they talk about the general environment, like demographic forces, how the company is being impacted by demographic changes. And then you see economic forces here, how the company is being impacted by demographic forces and what they need to do to obviously stay successful. And finally here, under this heading, the effects of customers and competitors on the company environment or the company management. So here you're looking at direct forces or task environment. So customers would be one of the very important forces on the company. Competitors would be another important force that directly impacts the company on a day-to-day basis in their profitability. Under this subheading, is diversity a challenge or benefit for Starbucks? You can see the authors give you some information in their critical analysis based on the forces that are currently impacting the coffee business and more specifically Starbucks. And then there's a discussion of critical management roles and what managers can do to make sure that they practice diversity and inclusion. In other words, how they can be ethical as a business and as a company. In this subheading, entitled The Ethical Imperatives to Manage Diversity, you see the article says Starbucks is known globally for its acceptance of different cultures. The company states, Starbucks actively creates and promotes an environment that is inclusive of all people in their unique abilities, strengths, and differences, and promotes diversity as a strategic and competitive business advantage for the company. This type of mentality allows them to thrive on different cultures enough to see it as a competitive advantage. So you continue to read the article, and then factors that influence managerial perception is discussed. So under this heading, you should be able to see more relevancy about how managers' perceptions are influenced regarding diversity and inclusion. Finally, we come under the heading of impact of diversity on the company performance. So, in other words, how is diversity impacting their bottom line, their success, their performance in the organization, their performance in the industry, and their performance as a top 100 best companies to work for in the United States. The article also gives you another heading entitled Best Practices to Manage Diversity. In other words, what do we learn from Starbucks? What are they doing well, and what can other companies learn and apply in their organizations to benefit? The personal qualities for leading diverse people is another subheading. And finally, you have the heading of conclusion and recommendations in this article. So besides reading the abstract, this is another area that you should immediately read before you dive deep into the literature that is usually discussed into these articles. You see on the last article under the conclusion recommendations, the authors mention wise leaders will focus on performance regardless of any gender bias, race, religion, or sexual orientation in order to increase company competitiveness. Leaders have to treat everybody fairly and lead by example so employees follow them and create a positive workplace for everybody. And finally, we see the subheading of references here. So you see the references start, and we list them alphabetically. So these references start, we list them alphabetically. So you see the first reference from 2012 starts with A. And then the second reference starts with Benedetto from 2008. So you see the name of the author or authors, the title of the article, and then the name of the journal, and then the volume number and page numbers. And sometimes you can also put in the digital object identifier or the link or the URL here. So you list all of your references accordingly here, alphabetically throughout the end of the document. And some journals will publish the biographies of authors. So this journal did, you can see a short biography of each of the authors. So these were all in the MBA program, so we call them master students or researchers in the graduate program. So Jacqueline is the first author, so she was the lead author here. In other words, she encouraged everybody else to publish this material or put it together, or she did most of the work. But chances are all authors are going to be equal contributors, and sometimes you can list authors alphabetically. But usually the author that came up with the idea or does most of the work, she or he should be listed first, followed by others in the same order. So you can basically get an idea of who these authors all are, what their backgrounds are from a biography. It's a good idea when you're writing papers to write a short biography of yourself at the end as well. So I look forward to reading your research papers. Once you send them to me, and your papers should be very similar to what you just read in this article. You start with introduction, and then the literature, and then methodology, some kind of discussion or analysis, and finally conclusion, usually followed by references in appendix. Always cite your sources. In other words, within the literature, you should support the statements that you make. Where did you read this material from? What year? Who was the author? Was it credible or was it not credible? Nonetheless, you support all those citations with full references at the end of your article, and then put your biography at the end, and you have an academic article. Good luck writing good articles about the topics that you choose. As always, remember, ethical behavior is a skill. So we need to police, evaluate, and improve our own ethical muscles by critically analyzing every single company, what they do, and how they do it, because their actions have an impact on the communities where you and I live. Good luck.